So my mother's parents, who are my grandparents,
Yeah.
were raised by their grandparents, and their grandparents were slaves.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So my grandparents learned their financial IQ from freed slaves.
Yeah.
What does that really mean, right?
Yeah. Hey, y'all. Welcome to another episode of Queen's Vantage Podcast. Today, I have a boss chick in the house, Kendra Willis.
Hey, I'm excited to be here.
Hey, Kendra. I'm so excited to have you. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me, Ebony. I'm excited as well.
Thank you. So before we get into this, let me tell our guests a little bit about you.
Okay.
All right. So Kendra Willis is a nationally recognized financial educator, financial literacy trainer, team builder, and the CEO of Onyx Advantage Insurance and Financial Group, which is a world system builder affiliate based in San Joaquin County. With 17 years in the financial industry, Kendra prides herself on helping people of color in urban communities to become their own financial managers or money managers.
Yes.
Kendra is into literacy and has a wealth of tools that she provides to the underserved community. Kendra, you also have webinars that you offer. There's some trainings and workshops that you offer to guests as well.
Yes.
So Kendra, welcome. Let's get into this. Welcome to Queen's Vantage.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm so excited. You know, I really have a passion for helping people, Ebony, understand how to be their own money managers and really understand how money works. Because I feel like people just really don't know enough about finances, and financial education is something that is not taught in school. So I make it my duty to get out there and share with the masses on how to be financially solvent, financially free, and to really understand money.
So Kendra, tell us a little bit. How did you get into this?
Oh, wow. Well, that's a story in and of itself. I actually, I've been in business for myself since I was a baby. I want to say since I was like 21 years old. Right after college, I decided that I wanted to help people. And at the time, I didn't really understand or really didn't know what direction I wanted to take. But I opened my own employment agency because I had a passion for just making sure that people could be their own bosses. So that's always been my thing. I want people to be their own boss. So I opened a staffing and employment agency with the goal of helping people to figure out how to do what they're passionate about. And somewhere along the way, I became the money manager of my grandparents. And my grandfather utilized me as his finance manager or his money manager. I started doing his books and handling his taxes. And one day I remember asking him if he had life insurance, and he was kind of nonchalant about it. I come from a family where we didn't talk about money at the table. It was a taboo conversation. I didn't know what my grandparents had, but they made it look easy, right? Mm-hmm. And he told me he did have life insurance, and he told me, you know what? It's in a drawer in my Bible next to my bed. And he took sick right after that, and he passed away. And I ran to that drawer, and I remember it like it was yesterday. I ran to the drawer, went in the Bible. I found that insurance card because at the time I knew my grandmother was going to need some additional financial help because he was the main source of her finances. He was the provider of our family, the patriarch of our family. And I called the company, and they said to me, oh, he doesn't have coverage. So your grandfather bought what's called a decreasing term, and it decreased out. And there's $0 in his policy. And I was very certain that he didn't know that. And I remember going to my grandmother and asking her, why would you buy this policy? Like, what was the reason behind it? She said, I don't know. A man sold it to us. He came to the door way back in 1979. We purchased it. We paid on it. We didn't know that it had decreased to $0. And I realized at that point that my grandparents weren't alone. There are tons of people, Ebony, who buy financial products, don't know what they bought. Buy life insurance, don't know how it works. Don't know the ins and outs of it. And then I realized, even then in my early 20s, I didn't know what I had or how it worked. And that day, the day after my grandfather died, I vowed that I was going to learn how money works. I was going to get the proper licenses and I was going to teach it to others. And I was going to make sure that there was no family left behind, and that there would be no family in my eyesight that would end up like my grandparents, dying poor with nothing. And my grandmother suffered after that. But I got my licenses. And I've been in business ever since. And since then, I have personally helped several thousand families to understand money, to understand their finances, to build a strong financial foundation, and to make sure that no matter what happens to them, whether they're 20 or 85, that they would be able to provide from their family even after death. So that's my main goal.
Yeah. Well, wow. And a real test of the will to say, sometimes we learn through the trials and tribulations.
Absolutely.
So losing your grandfather.
Absolutely.
And realizing that, your grandmother was put in a predicament where he had no coverage.
Yes.
And it reminds me, just not too far in a distant past, that when my mother passed away, she too was like, I have an insurance policy. Mm-hmm. And just a past guest that I just recently had, she talked about, when someone when they pass on, that we want to be in a place of being able to mourn their loss. Yes. And not be stressed out on the finances.
Absolutely.
And my mother's policy was never recovered. We still don't know to this day where or what it was. And so I was left to pick up the pieces after she passed away. And it took me nearly a year before I could actually even get into the grieving process to mourn her loss, because I was still trying to get through the financial hole that it built for myself.
Wasn't able to grieve properly. And that's a big thing in African-American households.
Yeah.
You, like me, know our parents, our grandparents, they didn't talk about money.
Yeah.
They don't tell us anything.
Yeah.
We don't know where anything's at. They'll say, oh, I have this or that.
Yeah.
But you're left to figure it out and pick up the pieces after they're gone. And I just want to help people avoid that. Yeah. Make finance something that we talk about at the dinner table. Yeah. Make money a topic that is not so taboo, and something that we're able to be okay with sharing our concerns, our needs, our wants with our children, with our own parents. So we want to normalize the conversation of financial literacy.
Absolutely. That brings me to this question. So at the beginning of each year, and I know that we're just, we're probably midway through the year, but at the beginning of each year, people set New Year's resolutions for themselves. Mm-hmm. And we talk about like how we want to do things differently. Correct. So whether it's just saying I'm hitting a restart button, what can people do at the beginning of the year to really plan out and have a successful financial year? Like, what are some things people should be considering? I'm hearing you talk a lot about life insurance, which is also a part of financial literacy. But what should we be considering at the beginning of each year to say, okay, these are the things I need to be looking at, reviewing, and doing for my family?
Yeah, I believe that we need to normalize, like I said, having a real relationship with our money. Mm-hmm. I tell people all the time, and I've coined this phrase, you need to watch your own wallet. So every year, as a matter of fact, at the end of every year, I don't even wait until it's the beginning of the year. I make sure that all of my clients know last week of December, after you've eating all the good food on the 25th. On the 26th, 27th, it's time for you to sit down, and it's time for you to make that New Year's resolution. Yeah. And that New Year's resolution needs to include new goals for your money. What is it that I want to do? But in order for you to know what you want to do, you need to also every year have a look back. Yeah. What's happened to me and my finances from January of this year until December? What did I do right? What did I do wrong? How much did I come into the year with, and how much am I leaving out of the year with? If you start to see that you've had some bad money habits or some bad patterns, right? I have a consistent pattern of overspending in Starbucks. You need to make those changes.
Are you
right
talking about me specifically? I mean, the shoe is kind of fitting right now.
You need to know where those patterns are. And you need to sit down and say, okay, here are my top goals for the first 3 months of the year, right? Yeah. Just one goal for the first 3 months, another goal for the first 6 months. And what's my overall goal concerning my finances for the year? It could be something very small. It could be something as simple as I'm going to cut back on my shopping. Yeah. I'm going to do better with my groceries. I'm going to do more cooking at home instead of eating out. But make one or two small goals and then make those adjustments. Yeah. Everybody needs to have a budget. I tell people, when you get into that new year, don't go into the year not knowing what your budget is going to look like. Yeah. But you also need to know, what's coming in. I think a lot of times we never really sit down and consider our actual income as it relates to our expenses.
Yeah.
So you need to know your income. You need to know your expenses. Establish what your needs are versus what your wants are. You can say, I know for a fact this year I want to take a big vacation, right? I want that, but I need to pay down some of my student debt. So you need to focus on your needs first and then make a plan to attain some of those wants.
Yeah.
As long as you have a plan, as long as you know what it is you're trying to attain, I tell people it can be really small. I think people think of finances or financial literacy, or they think of savings and they think, oh my God, I can't save a whole lot of money. Start small. I have young daughters. My daughters are 22 and 20. And my 22-year-old just recently graduated from college, got her first condo, her first real job. And one of the things I said to her mid-year when she graduated in May, I said, you need to start watching your money. You've got a condo now. You've got responsibilities. I want you to think about saving 3 months of an emergency fund, 3 months of your living expenses. And when she totaled it up, it was like, oh my God, that's a lot. And I said, don't worry about the big picture. Start small. So what out of your income can you start putting aside on a monthly basis or per pay period twice a month, even if it's $20 or $30? Put that in an account that you're not going to touch, because small steps or making some small changes will add up to something big later in the future. And I said, just put aside X amount of dollars every pay period into that account that you're not going to touch. And eventually you will hit that 3 months of an emergency fund goal. Yeah. So make those goals, make a budget, know what's coming in, know what needs to go out, and then set aside an additional amount of money for those wants. And pace those things out.
Yeah. And I know that a lot of the information that you're sharing right off will resonate with what tends to be high earners or people who make a substantial amount of money to be able to survive, specifically in where we live in California.
Right.
But I always feel like people who are lower earners, or let's say someone who's just getting their business off the ground, they don't always feel like they fit into this space.
Right.
Is there any advice that you can, really speak to, whether it's the single moms or the single dads who feel like, I'm not making a lot of money, so how do I save? How do I adjust?
Yeah. I say you just have to start. You can... Listen, make Google your best friend, everybody. Google can be your friend, okay? So you need to Google money-saving apps. My company, I'm going to show you this real quick, Ebony. My company, and this is complimentary. My company offers financial literacy workshops on a complimentary basis. We do this 5 times a week, 5 days a week, 3 times a day. And in these workshops, we're teaching people the very bare bones basics, like how to make money work better for you, how to find and save more money, how to understand investments, how to protect and preserve the money, how to build a strong financial foundation. So I tell people all the time, don't be afraid to use the internet to find courses like this, right?
Yeah.
To find our complimentary workshops, or to just take a tracker. There are budgeting apps, and you can start where you are, right? Don't worry about the bigger picture, especially when it comes to single moms. I know a lot of single moms who are living on a shoestring budget. Don't hesitate to save $5 in an envelope if that's where you are, right? Having that rainy day fund, it will come in handy. But it all boils down to knowing where you are, not being afraid to say, this is where I am, but I know in a year, this is where I want to be. And sometimes, Ebony, it also boils down to not being afraid to do something extra in addition to, because our money can only go so far.
Right.
You know what you make, and you look at your budget and you look at your bills. If you're not making enough to meet your bare bones basic bills and to have a little extra for yourself, it may be time to take a side hustle.
Yeah.
And we live in a day and age where that's possible. It's possible to DoorDash. It's possible to, to do some of these work from home jobs. So one, don't be afraid to say, I need more.
Yeah.
Don't be afraid to try and do more. And don't be afraid to cut back on some stuff.
Yeah.
We also have we have a fear of missing out.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's true.
We have a fear of missing out, right?
We do.
So people are like, oh my God, I have to be here.
Yeah.
I have to be there. I have to look a certain way. I have to have the latest of this and the latest of that. You know what? Sometimes you've got to sacrifice for 2 or 3 years.
Yeah. And we are in this soft girl era.
Yes.
Right? So
yes.
a lot of us are like, we're figuring ourselves out. We're
Yes.
basking in our feminine energy.
Yes.
And what we believe is that requires us to be at a spa.
Yeah.
Or at brunch or
Yes.
out to eat or
Yes.
at some social gathering.
Yes.
And what I've learned is that self-love
Yes.
and self-care is very different.
It is very different.
And self-love is free.
Self-love is free. And guess what? Sometimes self-care can be free.
Yeah.
Because most of us have a shower.
Yeah.
And you can, go out and grab some eucalyptus or some peppermint oil.
Or a little lavender.
And a little lavender.
Yeah.
And pamper yourself.
Yes.
And you can do those things. Paint your own nails.
Yeah.
Don't be afraid to sit down and, and turn on the TV and wrap your hair in a towel and give your own self a day spa or a spa treatment.
I feel like you preaching to the choir. I don't know.
And don't be afraid to go out and buy fruit and make your own charcuterie board and sit in the house with your favorite cup of tea and a book.
Yes.
And, we don't do those things anymore. Everybody is looking for the big thing, but simplicity is where it's at. And I tell people, when it comes to your money, there's one thing you can control. You may not really be able to control how much is going to come in this month, but you can definitely control what's going out.
Absolutely.
Control your spending.
Yeah.
You don't always have to spend. Look at where you can cut back.
Yeah.
We're in a day and age where everything comes with a fee. We've got all these apps on our phones that we're paying an additional $5.99 or $10 a month for when there are free apps. We've got cable, but then we have cable and we have 12 other streaming services for $9.95.
Yeah.
Look at what's going out.
Absolutely.
Maybe have one streaming service for $9.99. Not all of them. I one day I looked at my own habits and I said, just because you make the money don't mean you have to always give it away. Right? I'm in financial education. And so I'm not afraid to slash some things. I'll go through my daughters are adults now and they live on their own. My 22 and my 20-year-old. My 20-year-old lives in the dorm, but she still has extra things that she spends on. And I made them share cable. They live 3,000 miles away. One's in Georgia and one's in San Francisco, right?
Yeah.
But guess what? You're going to share cable. You're going to share a streaming service. You're going to split the cost because you can do that. So instead of them both spending $69 a month, they spend $35 a month and they share it. So learn how to slash those unnecessary expenses and feel good about it. Be proud about it. It's okay.
Yeah. Get a Keurig, make coffee at home
There
or whatever,
you go.
whatever system you need.
There you go. I'm
Absolutely.
an avid juicer. And I make the prettiest juices at home. And I'm so, I guess kind of vain that I buy cute cups for them. Like I'll buy, my cups look like they came from Starbucks, but it's actually my name on the cup or my business name. But I pay couple dollars and I have these reusable cups and I make my own pretty drinks at home, my own mocktails. So just get creative.
I also see you on the most beautiful walks.
Yes.
I admire
I'm a
that.
walker.
Your sunset. And that is a part of self-love and self-care,
Yes,
how we pour into
absolutely.
ourselves. That doesn't cost us anything.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So I have to ask you this big kind of scary question.
Okay.
So we're seeing all over the news now that the banks are being bailed out.
Yes.
And there was already an initial fear that we are heading to a recession. What would you say to people? Like, I know that we can't predict whether this is a recession or not.
Right.
But what advice can you give people that are really thinking about their finances and bankings and have this anxiety around, like, what is going on around us? What could you say to people?
I tell people that I always live like it's a recession. I live.
I want you to say more about that.
Right. I live good, by the way. Right.
Right.
But I always live like, I can't trust the government, right? When it comes to my finances, nobody is going to be more concerned about my money than I am.
Right.
Ebony, nobody's going to be more concerned about your financial future than you are.
Absolutely.
Right? And so I don't rely on the government.
Yeah.
I don't rely on the JOB, right?
Yeah.
Even if you work a job, I'm in business for myself, but even if you work a job, if you work a regular 9 to 5, you still have to know that your employer is not going to be as concerned about your finances as you are.
Right.
So even though according to economists, we're on the cusp of a recession. There is supposed to be a recession in 2023.
Yeah.
Whether there is or not, won't bother me. It won't affect me because I always live under my budget, right? I spend less than I make. I am frugal. I plan everything, and I really watch my own wallet.
Yeah.
And so when you do that, when you only buy what you need, you can afford to sometimes buy what you want, right? Because the majority of the times I buy what I need.
Yeah.
If you pre-plan your vacation and you have a budget for that, if you budget out for when it's time to buy clothing, if you don't spend a whole lot of money on your hair, then sometimes you can spend a lot of money on your hair. So I always live like there is a recession. I don't trust the government.
Yeah.
We all see what happened when the world went crazy, when we were in a pandemic.
Yeah.
People who relied on the government were in big trouble.
Yeah.
So I keep an emergency fund. I tell people all the time, you are always working on your emergency fund.
Yeah.
If you work on 3 months, when you hit 3 months, you work on 6 months. When you hit 6 months, you work on 12. When you hit 12, you work on 18. When you hit 18, you work on 24. And so one day you look up and you've got 3 years worth of your living expenses set to the side.
Wow.
So if the ball drops, the economy goes cuckoo, and we get in a recession, guess who's not worried? You aren't.
Right.
Because you've got 3 years worth of living expenses set to the side.
Yeah.
And so if you live like that, you don't have a fear of the government.
Right.
You don't have to worry about what everybody else who's scrambling because you're prepared. When you prepare, it's because you care.
Right.
If you care about your own money enough, you will prepare. Same thing goes with your retirement plan.
Yeah.
I tell 20-year-olds, the minute you get a job, start saving for retirement.
Yeah.
Don't be afraid to do those things. So yes, we're probably going to go into a recession, but if you are planning properly, it won't even matter for you.
Yeah. I think what I'm hearing which is absolutely key, and I know that I certainly can do better at, is living below my means.
Absolutely.
And I know that culturally we have a problem. We've talked about that.
Yeah.
And then the other thing is like when you reach a level of success and you're like, I finally made it, you know?
Yeah.
And so it's like, let me splurge. And like you said, it's okay to kind of give to ourselves.
Yeah.
But be frugal, be mindful.
Yeah,
And realize, like you
absolutely.
said, we don't know what's going to happen.
Absolutely.
And no one's going to manage our money better than us. So I think you have stated that so clearly.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
yeah. So now you're an entrepreneur, a serial entrepreneur. And what advice, because I think, me watching you throughout the years, just you've been a successful entrepreneur. What advice can you give to people? Because I just think that you have something so special to offer in this space.
Thank
You
you.
do. And I watched you go from, I think when we met, you had a very small business.
Yes.
And you were doing taxes
Yes.
at the time, and I believe bankruptcies.
And insurance.
And insurance.
So I've
that's
always
right.
been in the financials.
Right. You actually, my insurance policy is still the one that I bought with you.
Yeah.
But I think you have something real special in this space. And what can you, because there's a lot of folks that are saying, I'm tired of working for people.
Yeah.
Just as we're saying, like, you know what, the government really can't be trusted, but nor do we really want to be working for people. A lot of us, some of us in this space,
Right.
are like, we don't want to continue to do this. What advice would you give to entrepreneurs on the rise right now, especially when they're not just thinking about their own personal finances, but when they're thinking about business finances?
Well, the first thing I want to say is don't be afraid to do your research. I think a lot of times we jump into stuff and we don't do the research. You need to do the research and don't be afraid to hire out, right? Sometimes it takes money to make money. And so you're going to have to invest in that business. If you have this grand business idea and you want to be an entrepreneur, maybe you start saving some of your personal income to help finance that business venture. But along the way, if you need to hire a business coach, go ahead and do that, right? Make sure that you have a plan, a real solid business plan. What is it that you're trying to accomplish? You need to know your market. You need to know what your goal is for that business. And what is it that you are attempting to accomplish. Don't jump into something just for the money. I always encourage people to, if you're going to do something, have some form of a passion. You need to really feel that thing, right?
Yeah.
So be passionate about what you do and don't be afraid to invest in it. And doing your market research is the first step in the investment process. The second step is after you've done that research, get that business plan, possibly hire a business coach, maybe sit down with a financial educator to kind of help you roadmap your way to success. But it is going to take some sweat equity. It is going to take time. Don't beat yourself up. I bring a lot of people into the financial industry. So when you read that I was a giant team builder, I build teams. I bring people from all different walks of life and I show them how to jump into the financial industry, how to get the proper licenses, how to become a financial educator and a coach for other people. And what I find that happens often is that people see my success and they want it, right?
Yeah.
But they don't know that I've been doing this for almost 2 decades.
Yeah.
And so it takes time, right? You can't go and buy a McDonald's and then tomorrow it's built and all your customers are there.
Right.
No, you've got to go to Hamburger Academy, right? Or Hamburger University or McDonald's University, whatever it's called. But you've got to learn how to make the secret sauce. You've got to learn, or if you're a baker, you got to learn how to bake the cake. You got to learn the ingredients that go into it. It's the same with entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
Whatever it is you're going to do, you have to learn the ingredients. You have to learn how to make that thing successful. And oftentimes people give up too soon.
Yeah.
Don't quit too soon. It takes time.
Well, speaking of that, so I started this podcast a year ago. And, someone just recently asked me, like, how did you find the passion in this? And it was my love for people.
Yes.
I've worked in philanthropy for nearly 17 years and found that I found my special sauce in being a connector, connecting people to people and connecting people to information.
Yes.
And so now that we're sitting in this wonderful space in my new studio. And
awesome. I love it. It's
amazing production staff and a producer who's just doing incredible work. Shout out AJ.
All right. Go AJ. Go AJ.
Hey, what's up, guys?
Yeah. I mean, AJ's so good that my wheels are spinning like, AJ.
And, to be in this space today, and like you said, the blood, sweat, and equity that has gone into this podcast and having moments where, I thought, am I going to continue this? Because there's a lot of work, but really finding my passion.
Yes.
And I love what you said about, it's not about the money.
Right.
For me, it's about building others. Like that's the legacy that I want to leave.
Absolutely.
If I leave here today, I want people to be able to look at Queen's Vantage and say, wow, she has something to offer to the world.
Yes, absolutely.
So I love that you said that. And I always encourage people, find what it is that you love. Not what I love.
Right.
Not what Kendra loves.
Right.
But what is it that you love? Find your niche and go after it. Go after it.
Yes. I love this. I would do it absolutely free.
Yeah.
I love helping people. There is a certain joy that I get out of knowing that I've helped somebody to really fix their finances, to really build that strong financial foundation, that I've helped somebody to create a legacy and that what they've done will live well beyond them. I sit down with people all the time and I say to them, what is it that you want to do for the great-grandchildren that you don't have yet?
Yeah.
What is it that you want to leave behind for them? What is it that you'd want them to think about you 100 years from now, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't know. Money is the one thing other than oxygen that you will use forever.
Yeah.
You will need it forever.
Yeah.
You can't live on this earth without $1. You just can't, right? And so when you think about it that way, I think if money is something that we're always going to use, it's a tool that we're always going to need, why not develop a great relationship with it, right? Why not treat it better? I think we don't treat our money well. We make it, we spend it, we make it, we spend it, we make it, we spend it. But what is the real relationship? What is the real goal of that tool? What is it that you really wish to accomplish? Do if we put our money towards our passions, if we put our money towards helping others, how amazing this world could be if we were all doing right by our money.
Absolutely.
I just really feel that way.
Yeah. It feels like you're a philanthropist at heart.
Oh, I am. I mean, a lot of the work I do in the community, I mean, it's complimentary.
Yeah.
So I'm out there for anybody that has a church or a women's or a men's group or any type of nonprofit, and they want myself or my team. I have a team. I have a team of 112 other agents, but our bigger team is 30,000, but I work specifically with the 112 that I've brought into the business and I've helped to develop them. But we're out there. We're at community events. We're at Juneteenth festivals and all these different President's Day festivals and all these different festivals with our table, just sharing the importance of financial literacy, giving out workbooks and giving out the tools that people need to really build that strong financial foundation. So a lot of what I do, I don't charge. I don't charge anybody to come to a church. I don't charge to come to a women's group. I don't charge to go into the schools. And we've been in the colleges and in high schools because financial education is not taught in schools.
Yeah.
So we've been in the public and private sector, and we're just saying, let's teach people how to build strong relationships with their money, how to build a strong financial foundation. If everybody understood money, there would be no poverty.
Yeah.
There would be no homelessness.
Yeah.
All of that relatively stems from lack of understanding.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. I really hope my listeners are really
too.
honing in on this. Kendra and her team provide free financial literacy.
Yes.
I mean, there's nothing better than that.
Right.
And what I hope from this is that people can really take that inward look into themselves and say, what is my relationship with money?
Absolutely.
And then from there, start to build a healthier relationship with it.
Yes. Change your money mindset. If we just all looked at our money mindset, and a lot of our money mindset really comes from what we inherited, right?
Mm-hmm.
You sometimes often think what your parents thought.
Yeah.
Because that's what you were taught, right? That's your money classroom.
Right.
You know, your money classroom stems from who taught you about money. And so for me, like I said, in our household, we didn't talk about it.
Yeah.
My mother's parents were mostly raised by their grandparents, right? And so my mother's parents, who are my grandparents, were raised by their grandparents, and their grandparents were slaves.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So my grandparents learned their financial IQ from freed slaves.
Yeah.
What does that really mean, right?
Yeah.
So they didn't know a whole lot. They didn't know about home ownership. All of my grandparents died poor.
Yeah.
You know? And so for me, I knew that I had to change my money mindset so that I can change my daughter's money mindset.
Yeah.
I come from a family where by the age of 20, all of the women had children. So for me, it was, I need to do something different from my daughters, right?
Yeah.
For my daughters. Even my daughter, I had my first daughter a day before my 21st birthday. I almost made it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was a day late, right?
Yeah.
Or a day early. But so for me, I wanted to make sure that my daughters understood the importance of being strong women, not strong Black women, strong women. Strong women, right?
Yeah.
Black is the byproduct of being you're a woman first, right?
Yeah.
And I wanted them to be strong women. I wanted them to understand that they don't have to have a man to help them along, because they might not happen for them, right?
Right.
So I wanted them to be encouraged and empowered and to understand how to navigate this world for themselves.
Yeah.
And a part of understanding how to navigate this world is you understanding your buying power, you understanding your earning power. And so now my daughter, who's only 22, she's having these conversations at work. She's sitting down with HR and saying, hey, this is what I believe I'm worth.
Yeah.
And sometimes it even scares me because I'm like, slow your roll. But I mean, I'm the one who put her in that driver's seat,
You raised
right?
a free thinker.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so she knows that she has the power to make financial decisions for herself. She has the power to do whatever it is she wants to do and accomplish what she wants to accomplish.
Right.
And that starts with just having that security that comes with understanding, one, who you are, but also understanding how to make that money work for you instead of you always working for it.
Yeah, I love that. Recently, a pastor was preaching on the difference between generational curses and generational mindsets. And I think poverty is a mindset.
Absolutely, it is.
And like you said, just the history of your family and me growing up with a single mother who had been on government assistance for many years, actually despised me when I made a decision to go to work. And said, no, Mom, I'm not gonna do that. I'm not going to go down and get on government assistance. I am actually going to get a job because I had done the research. And when I looked at it, I said, wait, I can make that a week.
Right.
What they were,
Yeah.
And so I remember taking a different direction in life other than many of my family members and have been able to change the path of my children, change my course. And that was incredibly powerful for me.
Yes. And I mean, so we have a very similar background in that way. And it happens for a lot of people, and it's not race based. What I've learned over my studies is that financial illiteracy and the poverty mindset, it's not a cultural thing. It's an American thing, right?
Right.
It's an American thing. It doesn't matter your race, religion, or creed. It's really about the mindset, where you come from, what's been taught to you. And so a lot of us, we do. You're right. We have that poverty mindset, and it's all about shifting. And I find that a lot of times it's really because people have had a lack of support, right? So your lack of understanding comes from the lack of support. And the lack of understanding and the lack of support leads to a lack of planning.
Yeah.
And so it's all just like a big circle.
Yeah.
If you don't know, you won't do.
Yeah. Well, Kendra, I know you and I could talk about this
all
day.
Yes.
But I have to move us on to the next part of this segment.
Okay, let's do it.
And it's called Taboo Talk.
All right, I like it.
And so I think you know what this is just by the name of it, where I like to address things that are taboo in our culture and in our communities.
Okay.
And so today I want to address crowdfunding.
Okay.
And plate and dinner sales for funerals.
Oh my goodness.
And I know that we've talked a bit about the importance of having a life insurance policy.
Yes.
And so it is so hard to see. And like I said before, when I lost my mother, I didn't get a chance to really grieve initially because I was trying to figure out how am I going to financially pay for her funeral.
Yes.
Get everything out of her house.
Yes.
And so I wanted to address this. And I always like to do this in a way where, again, I'm inviting people into this conversation rather than pushing them out.
Right. Okay.
And so you're an expert in life insurance.
Yes.
And I know some people look at it as big picture or it's not attainable for them. But let's talk about the importance of life insurance. And if you could just give hey, there's small policies out there. This is what you can do.
Yeah.
So that we're not seeing people in the survival mode when they lose a loved one.
Absolutely. So life insurance, I call it love insurance, right? Because life insurance typically or technically, it's designed as income replacement. Okay. So in the event that a person passes away, their family members are able to replace their income. A lot of times we only think about the funeral part of it, right? But that's just a small part.
Right.
Final expenses, paying for that person's final expenses, planning that funeral. That's one small part of it. But what about what happens after the funeral?
Yeah.
Especially for those that are single moms or even have a spouse that relies on their income. Have children that rely on their income. After the funeral, after the food that everybody drops off at that person's house, what happens the next day? Family members still have to get up and go to work. Food still has to come to that table. Children still have to go to school and they'll still have college expenses. So for me, I like to tell people life insurance is love insurance. It's making sure that you love your family enough to where you won't leave them in a bind.
Yeah.
It does not have to cost an arm and a leg.
Yeah.
I work with 180 plus providers and carriers. Do you know that life insurance is pennies on the dollar, depending on what type of policy you buy? And you also want to make sure that when you purchase a policy, you understand the type of policy you're purchasing.
Yeah.
So you want to sit down with somebody who's not just going to sell you something,
right,
but who's going to educate you, right?
Yeah.
Who's going to tell you the difference between a term life which is for a specific period of time, a whole life, which is going to last you your whole life, an index plan, right? An index universal life that's going to allow you to tweak the plan and make payments on different pay schedules, and it's also going to give interest back and money back to you, right? Living benefits. But those life plans, they don't have to cost a whole lot. I'll give you an example. I had a very young mother come to me just 2 days ago, Ebony, 21 years old with a 2-year-old child. She does not have parents of her own, and she doesn't have a large family. And she said, look, I am on a budget. I want some life insurance, but I'm afraid, I'm scared. You know what? We were able to put her and the baby in a plan for about $200 a year.
Oh, wow.
A year.
Yeah. So it is, I mean,
it's affordable.
It's attainable and it's affordable.
Yes.
And people can do it.
Yes.
And, you know, we can get enough to whether it's to cover the passing or the death.
Yeah, just for a death benefit, which is like your final expenses. Final expenses could range from the funeral, the burial, or the cremation. A lot of people don't realize, but sometimes when you die, your final expenses also include a hospital stay. If you had to use an ambulance to get to the hospital and then you died at the hospital, there's a bill.
Yeah.
If you walked into the hospital and you died at the hospital, there's a bill.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so those are considered final expenses. So you can have a plan that's just small enough to cover that.
Yeah.
Or you can have a plan that's large enough to do something like pay off your mortgage in the event that you pass away, right?
Yeah.
And you pass away, you have a children or a spouse or someone who lives in that home, the mortgage could be paid off.
Yeah.
There are plans that can put your kids through college. You can get a plan that gives you living benefits. A lot of us don't think about what happens if we're sick. We're going to die, but we have not yet died. Critical illness coverage.
Yeah.
So some life insurance policies come with critical and chronic illness protection, meaning that if you have a critical or chronic illness, it may not be a terminal illness.
Right.
Maybe it's just critical. Maybe you're down for 3 months. Maybe you're down for 6 months. Maybe you've had a heart attack or a stroke and you can't return to work. And state disability is going to take, 3-4 weeks before they cut a check. Right. What happens in the interim? What happens if you get sick on the 20th, but your rent is due on the 1st or your mortgage is due on the 1st, right?
Yeah.
There are life insurance plans that you can purchase and pay into that will cut a check for you during the interim of that 20 days that you're waiting for your state disability to kick in.
Yeah.
And will cut you a large lump sum so that you can take care of your bills, take care of your responsibilities while you're going back and forth to the hospital or while you're trying to get cured. Yeah. So there are tons of plans. You just need to sit with the right person.
That is fantastic. Well, as you all can see, Kendra has a wealth of knowledge. Kendra, can you tell everyone, how can they find you?
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I am everywhere. I'm still old school, Ebony. My kids are like, you need to get with the new school and do some new stuff. But I'm on Facebook. I am still on Facebook. You can find me on Facebook at Kendra Knows Best. Just like it reads, Kendra Knows Best. Okay. I am on Instagram at Kendra the Financial Educator. I still check my email every morning. And my email is info, I-N-F-O, 4, Kendra L, because my middle initial is L. So info for Kendra L Willis at gmail.com. Yeah. You can hop in my inbox or my messenger on Facebook at Kendra Knows Best. You can DM me on Instagram. Yeah. I get back. I set those appointments. I work with people one-on-one. Our one-on-one appointments, we call them a PFS, Personal Finance Strategy. For anybody who's interested in our daily workshops, we can get them in the daily workshops. I'm always talking about this book, even though I didn't write it. It's called Saving Your Future, and it's written by my mentor, Swan Nguyen. It's a great book that teaches you about the basic principles of finance. I mail this out. I email this to people. So anybody looking to join the workshops, get a free book, I can definitely help there too.
All right.
All right.
And Kendra, any shout outs today?
Well, you know what, Ebony, I want to shout you out.
Thank you.
You guys make sure to tune in to Queen's Vantage. I mean, if I'm going to shout out anybody, I'm going to shout out another queen. I also want to shout out my company, World System Builder. They make it possible for me to get out there and share this wealth of information. And then my own team, the Onyx Advantage team. We are everywhere. We have offices all over the nation, and we specifically make sure that we're out in the streets, we're out in the trenches, we're out in our community helping people to understand how to be their own money manager.
Kendra, thank you so much. I love you so much.
Oh, thank you, Ebony.
And just continue to shine.
Yes.
You are doing amazing work in this community.
Thank you.
And I am just honored to have you here on Queen's Vantage today.
And I'll come back anytime. We can narrow it down and just talk women in finance.
Yes.
We can talk being in your 20s in finance, 30s in finance, 40s in finance.
Well, we got to get to the 40s because it's almost my 40th birthday.
Okay. We got to do it. And I'd be more than happy to come anytime you want me to come back. I love what you're doing. This is amazing. And you guys, she is passionate about this and I love it. I'm so excited. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you. This was awesome.
Well, that's been another episode of Queen's Vantage Podcast. Remember, the crown may tilt, but it'll never fall off.
I love
it. Hey, y'all. Don't forget to go follow Queen's Vantage Podcast on Instagram at Queen's Vantage Podcast, on Facebook at Queen's Vantage Podcast, and please go subscribe to my YouTube channel. I'm also on Spotify and Apple.